The first duty of government is to protect our rights.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government in what we were tasked to do.
If you really want to doge, this is how you doge. You don't vote for bad legislation that expands government. Thank you.
Now we're talking about taxpayer money, and we're talking about accountability. It is their money. This isn't a government program we're actually spending on. We're actually giving it back to the people of Idaho.
There's other options for making our ballots more secure, such as using watermarks or putting holograms on the ballots.
And I think that that's what we need to look at more, is trying to get back to what we used to be, where our churches and our families took care of each other instead of relying on the state.
I asked the question rhetorically, if we gave them another $1 billion, they wouldn't be happy. Well, we've given them $2 more billion, and it's not enough.
We need to start making Idaho first. We need to start making America first.
Other states like Texas and Florida have enacted similar laws to address illegal immigration, both locally and in their communities. And Idaho has the right to protect itself when the federal government has failed to do that.
COVID presented us with quite the enigma. We didn't really know what it was or what to do, but that is no excuse to violate the rights of the citizens of the state of Idaho.
I say vote no on this and let the teachers teach and quit bringing in coaches to teach the teachers to teach, and let's get education going again in Idaho.
I don't know what's coming after this current administration for the feds, and we need this law because our federal laws on immigration have failed.
Mr. President, I think it's incumbent upon us to allow parents to use their hard-earned dollars to provide what's best for their children.
If I was looking at a business and I was looking at these figures, there would be heads rolling because this is unsustainable.
My concern is that the resilience of Idahoans who believe in self-reliance and self-responsibility will be eroded.
We need to be protecting our First Amendment rights, not inventing ways to slowly chip away at them.
The First Amendment and our freedom of religion, freedom of speech are our first liberties. They are so important. We don't have the rest without them.
Yeah, watch it.
Come on.
I guess we gotta fix that one again too. Anyway, good morning, everybody. A little behind the scenes action going on here this morning. It's February 16, 2026. Welcome to Idaho Signal. My name is Matt Edwards. And if you woke up in New York City this morning, Manhattan, you woke up to a new day, a new dawn, as apparently they are blasting the Islamic call to prayer across Manhattan. And but that's their problem. Here in Idaho, we're waking up to a new reality. Apparently, the entire Farm Bureau, Dairymen's Association, construction industry, they are sounding the alarm that if we simply remove and if we simply follow the law in this country and not hire illegal aliens, our entire state will collapse. Folks, Idaho is propped up by illegal foreign-born workers. And that was the message that was blasted loud and clear at the end of the workday, at the end of the work week on Friday, as a bunch of folks stood in front of some microphones at the Capitol. We've got a bunch of clips to show you, but I want to set the scene real quick with our first clip here. This is the lobbyist for the Dairymen's Association. Forewarning, I'm gonna ruin all these names right off the bat. But this was the lobbyist for the Idaho Dairymen's Association, and I want to start with this clip here, and then bring in our guest.
I would just underscore the point that nobody up here is saying we're okay with the status quo. We're all spending tremendous time, money, and resources to try and fix the system. And sometimes that gets lost. I think there's this perception that we want the status quo to exist, and we don't. We've been working at this issue for nearly 2 decades to try and find a pathway forward. And we'll continue to work at it till we find the solution. But the status quo is not acceptable for any of us. And I think that's missed because regardless of your political affiliation or where you fall in that spectrum, I think we all want the same thing in a fixed immigration system.
Michael Angeletta is the part of Secure Idaho. He joins us now. This is the big issue for their organization, and Michael, this grassroots organization. Michael, welcome to the program. These guys have been working on this issue for 20 years, it sounds like, and I don't know what they've got to show for it other than stepping up and saying we can't. One thing we can't do is enforce the law. Is that right?
Well, I think we agree with the lobby on one thing. We're not happy with the status quo. From my perspective in the business world, which is my background, if we've tried the same thing for 20 years and we haven't been able to change the outcome, it's time to change the approach. And this year is the time to change that approach.
Yeah, it absolutely is. So we've got, I want a bunch of clips here I want to throw to you. But one of the things, basically the first thing they did is they wanted to prop up all of this fear and all of the worry that they have based on this study that was done. And so I'm going to let them kind of explain the study. We want to have full transparency here. We want to know exactly where they're coming from, and we want to be able to knock down their arguments and show, just like you just said, it's time for a new way. So let's listen to just a little bit here of the introduction of what this study was all about. Let's do study one, guys.
Supply chain is currently dependent on the productivity and output of those undocumented laborers. We use as our economic-based model a data system called IMPLAN, and our focus was on the near-term consequences of removing a significant portion of that undocumented labor. I want to talk for a moment just about what that means from a supply chain issue. If we reduce the number of laborers on dairies, dairy output will have to be curtailed. That reduction in dairy output, reduction in milk production, will lead to places like Chobani not being able to expand because they won't have access to the milk that they need. The same story can be told with potatoes, with barley, etc. I emphasize again that we're talking about near-term consequences, not structural changes in the economy. Those are long-term consequences that would occur as the economy restructures to accommodate the constrained labor market. Currently, the members of this alliance, the construction, hospitality, and food services, and our agricultural sector here in Idaho support roughly 31 to 35% of our entire economy. That's our economic base. These are pillars in our economy that our economy rests on. Our baseline scenario removes 50% of the estimated productivity directly associated with the undocumented laborers in each of those industries. So 45% reduction in dairy output, 25% associated reduction in dairy processing, 22.5% reduction in all agriculture, and an additional 5% reduction in agricultural processing, 13% reduction in residential construction, and 10% reduction in hospitality and dining services.
Michael, those are staggering numbers when it comes to learning how much of our industries are propped up by foreign-born, but not just foreign-born, but by illegal, undocumented workers.
Yeah, no, I think that's an acknowledgement right there of the structural issue, right? They do conflate foreign-born with illegal, and it's important to distinguish that. So a lot of times they will clump what really ought to be just the impact from removing illegal labor with all foreign-born. Right. And one could argue whether or not that's genuine or not, but it's important to at least draw that distinction. I think there's two very easy rebuttals to this. I'm not disputing the model they used for this report. It's a legitimate economic model. It's called the input-output model. And it's really good for analyzing supply chains, right? If you change something today, then X will be the immediate result tomorrow. That's if you're in a static system though, right? If nothing else changes. But I've got good news. We actually can look to other states that have implemented legal labor enforcement, essentially E-Verify, and we can look at what happened to those sectors that these lobbyists are supposedly defending. So we can look at big ag and we can look at big construction, for example. And what we really find is that the market is not static, it's dynamic. So when you actually start enforcing labor, the market adjusts. So wages change, they typically go up. Labor movement happens. So people that are in one sector move to another sector. Sometimes if they live in one state, they move to another state if there's a demand with high paying jobs. The industry itself starts to innovate. So they change the entire structure of the business and become more efficient and better. So I would argue that if we look to other states, we have real live examples that this ecosystem is A, dynamic, and B, when you do implement labor enforcement like E-Verify, the markets adjust, and guess what? They get stronger.
Right. Yeah. You mentioned on an article that you published on X and so forth regarding what's going on in Arizona, and I want to get to that in just a second. But first, the point you just made is great, because they're lumping all of this into this foreign-born, and there are plenty of foreign-born folks who are here legally utilizing, whether you agree with it or not, they're utilizing this H-2A program. So, guys, let's take a look at this is Steve Martinez, I think, from the he represented the construction industry, I believe. Here are some of his numbers. Let's watch this one.
Steve Martinez with the Idaho Home Builders Association. It's an honor to be here today. One of the things I am very, very passionate about affordable housing. One of the things that is plaguing not only the country, but our state, as somebody that is born and raised in this beautiful state, it's very frustrating to see that the average age of the first-time home buyer is 40 years old. That's a terrible stat. I go across the country, I go across the state, I advocate on behalf of affordable housing at every level. One of the components to affordability is the labor input that we put into the homes. About a third of our workforce is foreign-born. Now, foreign-born could be here legally, illegally, temporarily. It could be, anybody that's here that was not obviously born of this country. And so when I talk about foreign-born labor, it's a broad spectrum. And so a third of our industry, a third of our labor force is that foreign-born labor.
Michael, real quick, what does it say that the fact that they're just openly admitting that they have undocumented workers? I mean, I guess it's not a secret, and they're just sort of embracing that and saying we want to find a path forward. But when the path forward is E-Verify or something like that to make sure that we are not hiring foreign-born, they cry that the sky is falling.
Well, two things. One is housing affordability is primarily a function of supply and demand. And we also happen to know that the supply becomes more constrained if we have an influx of, guess what? Illegal immigrants, right? They need housing too, whether or not it's rentals or maybe even purchasing a home. So let's not ignore the fact that that is an actual factor in the supply and demand equation. I've talked to several home builders, most of whom play by the rules, actually, not all. And what happens is a lot of them hire contractors and subcontractors, and they don't have full visibility into what's happening with the subcontractor world, nor do they really care to look at it because they know what's happening there right now. It's primarily a lot of illegal labor going into the home building subcontractors. And so structurally, we know there's a flaw with the business model. Incentive wise, you imagine though, if you're a builder, and like I said, I talk to a lot, I work with a lot, and they want to do the right thing. But it's a lot easier to simply maintain the status quo and possibly improve your margins than to go through what would probably be a brief 1 to 2 year adjustment to train up local staff and pay them more. So you can understand from a purely self-interested perspective how, okay, can I just keep the same going and keep my nice, good margins? Or do I have to go through this? It's kind of a hard adjustment, and I might have to find and train up new labor, and I might not quite have the margins I used to have. So it's important to at least understand their perspective. But I'm here to tell you, though, that again, and I know I keep refraining, that other states have addressed this issue, and the construction industries are stronger than ever before. They do adjust, and housing prices do not skyrocket as a result.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So I think we have your article here shared from X, and basically you use Arizona as an example. Arizona, and we'll get into how E-Verify works, and feel free to say, to mention that here. But what did Arizona do, and how long ago did they do it, and how are they doing today?
Yeah, and the reason why I brought up Arizona, it's a very important point. So the big lobbies essentially do what I call fear modeling. So they say if we get rid of all the illegal labor, then the industry is going to collapse and it's going to be a complete disaster. In fact, they even reference the Great Recession in their report, which is something else. And so the way we dispel that is we say, well, okay, we don't know what we don't know, except actually we do know because other states have done this. And we can look at Arizona as a perfect example of what happens when you implement E-Verify. So they did this all the way back in 2007. And the reason was they had a mass influx of illegal immigration and labor coming into the state. And it became such a popular issue that they actually did a state ballot initiative. They said no more public benefits for illegals. The legislator heard the mandate and they did something. And they did something in the form of E-Verify. And E-Verify in Arizona did a couple things. It depressed illegal labor. It depressed the population of illegals in Arizona within the first 1 to 2 years by 17%. So we can't argue there's no good impact there, because this is what this is designed to do. It's designed to limit illegal activity and labor, right? But here's the other key facet. So the lobby will say, if we remove illegal labor, dairy's going to collapse. Or maybe it won't collapse, but it's going to be a travesty. We're going to, you've heard those big percentage numbers, but that's not what happened in Arizona. In fact, you can see, I guess, thanks, you have the screenshot there. I wanted to look at, well, what about the Arizona industry? How are they doing? Do they have a dairy industry? How big is it? Same with construction. Well, look at those numbers right there. 1.2 billion dairy industry in Arizona. They're still there. They're still strong. 35 billion in construction. They're still there. They're still strong. And yet there's less illegal labor. So the reason why they do that fear modeling is that's a narrative designed to scare legislators, right? So if I'm a legislator and I have dairy and I have farms and construction in my district, and I'm going to be told that these industries are all going to collapse, well, maybe that's a good reason to oppose what I know is otherwise the right thing. But I'm here to tell you they will not collapse. They will be better and stronger than before.
Yeah, especially here in Idaho. I mean, it doesn't. I don't see it any other way. And I love this term, this fear modeling that you're using. It's a great term. I want to turn it over here to, because here's one of the things that they are scaring the legislature with. Let's play both of these clips, guys. Here's Tommy Alquist, who actually ran for governor before, but him and his construction company. Let's watch him talk about E-Verify, and then as well as I think it was the Dairymen's Association as well. Let's watch those two clips.
My point that I want to make, an E-Verify solution would only add bureaucracy, and I know every time everyone meets down here for these few months. More red tape, more regulations. That's always the risk. It's always the trying to fix things. But right now, we need to listen to data. We need to listen to solutions, and we need to try to help the industries that we're talking about today get through this crisis until we can have solutions at the federal level that fix these problems. For our industry,
dairymen would be E-Verify proposals that would add bureaucracy and create more issues than they solve.
Okay, and then you also, it sounds like all of you are saying is that legislators in Idaho need to stop trying to work on immigration. Is that correct?
I'll speak from Idaho Dairymen's perspective. We would argue that the president has been very clear that he's working on something at a federal level, and that we should provide him the space to work to solve the problem, because this is a federal issue, not a state issue. The Constitution does not afford the state the ability to solve this problem and provide visas for us. As Zach outlined, your seasonal workers, or seasonal agriculture, they have access to the H-2A program. Year-round agriculture and other industries, we don't have a visa program. And we need to provide the president space to work on fixing that problem, as he stated he is doing.
Michael, so not only should we not use E-Verify because it's too cumbersome, but this isn't even our position or our responsibility. This is the federal government's responsibility. So it begs the question, what have they been doing the last 20 years? But number two, can you just start with how easy and what the pitch is for using E-Verify?
Yeah. And, before we dove headfirst into E-Verify, we had our own misperceptions about what it is. And I'm a limited government guy, and I'm also a small business owner. So I'm always skeptical of a new government program, first of all. Second of all, deferring just to the federal government is, in very polite terms, a cop-out. There are things states can do to make a difference. In this particular case, it's helping enforce federal law by providing very real sanctions and enforcement teeth when people violate the law. So that's what the state can do to make a difference. As far as E-Verify itself goes, let me try to address some of the biggest myths and misperceptions. And I hear this a lot from legislators and folks that otherwise really want to solve this illegal labor and immigration problem. So the first concern is, well, it's going to create this other national ID database, right? Big Brother. I'm here to tell you that it does nothing of the sorts. All it does is it cross-checks existing data. It checks with the Social Security Administration to make sure there's a valid Social Security number. It checks with DHS to make sure that they're actually a valid citizen. And sometimes it checks the DMV records in a state to say, hey, is this photo accurate? So it's not creating a new database. It's not creating new tracking mechanisms. It's simply verifying that the identity presented, typically in an I-9 form, is authentic. That's number one. The other misperception is that it's very onerous for a small business owner. And like I said, I don't I have a business in Oregon still, and Oregon's particularly onerous and bad. And I can't tell you how many hoops and certifications and licenses you need just to maintain a small business. So I don't like new stuff, but I'm here to tell you that what you do as a small business owner with E-Verify is you enroll once, and it takes maybe 10 to 15 minutes. You input your company and business information. And then every time you have a new hire, they're already filling out the federal form I-9. So what you're doing is you're taking that information from the I-9, you're inputting it into the E-Verify system, and it does a quick verification. That process with a new hire takes seconds to a few minutes, no more. And usually the response is almost instantaneous. And so this idea of something being onerous with new hires for business owners really isn't an issue at this point, considering how little time it takes for a business owner with a new hire. And so those are the two largest misperceptions. So it's not onerous, it's not big government, it's not Big Brother. It's solving, and I'll add one last piece, actually. I get excited. I can go on and on about this, but I've talked to some limited government legislators, and they're concerned about government expansion. I think something that some of these legislators might miss is that government is already expanded by supporting the illegal immigrant and illegal labor pool here. We, as the taxpayers and the government, subsidize them to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars in Idaho. We can eliminate that. And at the same time, with E-Verify, we're not creating any new budget or expense to enforce illegal labor laws. So it's an argument for limited government, I would say.
Yeah, and also for limiting the strain on our resources that illegals partake in. I mean, if you're here illegally, you're not going to be you want to use that fake identification as little as possible. So you're not going to be walking around signing up with your illegal, status everywhere you go. I mean, they talk about how I think it was Zach from the who's this guy from the Farm Bureau talking about I-9s and how employers are not even allowed to check. Let's let him explain it, and then you can react to it. I'm just the middleman here. Let's listen to Zach.
And speaking for my organization, in every industry, you're going to have a series of bad actors, and we don't speak for them, and we don't represent them, and we don't condone them. But what we know by and large is if you go to any one of our farms and you were to look, you would see I-9 forms on every employee that came through the door. You would see proper documentation. There's too many risks on the line for the farmers to run that type of a risk generally. The challenge is you're a farmer and you're not legally allowed if you're given documentation, you're not legally allowed to challenge that. In fact, there was a lawsuit years ago in which an employer did that very thing, and they lost and had to pay significant fines for violating civil rights. So you go on most farms, and again, I emphasize most because the ones that don't, we don't represent them or condone them, but our average farmer, our general farmers and ranchers, if you go, they're no different than any Main Street business. They try and follow the law. If you're given a regulation, if you're given more red tape, they complain about it, but they comply with that. I hope that answers that question.
Michael, it sounded like he was advocating for E-Verify because he's saying they fill out these forms and we're not allowed to check them. Well, isn't that what E-Verify is all about?
That's exactly what it's about. And I'm here to also address one other concern I heard from a senator in another testimony for another watered down E-Verify bill by Mark Harris. And it was Kelly Anton, and he asked a very important question that we can address right here and right now. If an employee fakes their paperwork, right? They fake their driver's license, they fake their social security number, and somehow it gets verified with E-Verify. I want to tell you that the employer is not liable for an employee committing that kind of fraud. It's never happened in any of the E-Verify states. It would not happen in Idaho as well. So the risk for the employer is only a risk if they knowingly hire an illegal employee. I want to be very clear about that. So I think you're absolutely right. This mitigates the risk.
Yeah, it mitigates the risk and it holds them responsible if they knowingly do it, which is what we should do. And right now, they're all admitting it. They all had a press conference saying Idaho's future is dire if we get rid of, and they say, foreign-born labor, which is made up of at least. And do we have that clip from the dairy industry? Remember the dairy industry? I mean, this was a couple of years ago where he stood in committee and confessed that maybe 70% of the dairymen's workforce might fail an I-9 check. Watch this.
Need for the reform. I give them the same numbers I just gave you. Congressman Labrador was up north, and he made a statement, and the statement was that 90% of the labor force in Idaho was on dairies was not legal, which obviously I've given you that 90% number. There was an AP reporter in that room, and I got a call almost instantly. He says, "Will you confirm what Senator or Congressman Labrador just said?" And you take a breath, and you have told Congressman Labrador all the facts. And I said, "Well, I think his numbers are a little high. I'll put it at 70%." And that's what I'll tell you. I think it's about 70% based on the data we have.
Follow up. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Nair. So is that not being enforced then by our federal government? Or, I mean, because I think illegal is, how does that work?
Mr. Chair and Representative Scott, great question. This is a federal government issue.
Yeah. Okay. Once again, it's a federal government issue. It's not our responsibility, even though we know they would probably all fail. I mean, Representative Heather Scott, bless her heart, she was kind of like dumbfounded. She was like, wait, like, it was almost like she just had to accept the fact that we're hiring these people and they can't do anything about it when they actually can do anything about it because they are the ones doing the hiring.
Yeah, well, I would love to, as somebody who's approaching this issue in good faith, representing a grassroots group that wants change, I'd love to have conversations, authentic, good faith conversations with the industry. And if you say you are not satisfied with the status quo, then work with us. That's a challenge to them. Work with us. I will tell you, because they have not historically worked with us on this issue and defer to Washington, D.C., we have to take things in our own hands. And that's why we created Idaho Immigration Watch. We have to create as much transparency as possible and just let the public and certainly the legislators know the actual truth of illegal labor enforcement and E-Verify. And I think once they see the truth, that it actually ends up benefiting the economy and benefits legal Idaho employers, this is an important point too, is what about all those businesses that do play by the rules? What about those family scale farms and what about those home builders that don't use illegal labor? They're at a competitive disadvantage right now because we are not enforcing labor laws. And that's not fair to them. So I would argue there's a cause for helping legal businesses, for strengthening our industry and, quite frankly, improving our employee labor pool and right here at home and making Idaho stronger.
Yeah, next time I have you on, I do want to talk about how we inspire Idahoans how we inspire these Idaho industries to recruit Idahoans, and how do we inspire Idahoans to get into these industries, because that is again, it would be the next step forward too. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. We have your website up here. Let people know exactly where they can go to find this, how they can follow you, and how they can get involved.
You bet. So we created this initiative. It's called Idaho Immigration Watch, and it's at idahoimmigrationwatch.org. And you can do 3 big things there. You can track with our bill tracker all of the key immigration reform that's taking place in the legislature. You can see where it stands and what committees are looking at it, and you can contact those committee members. You can also, this is important, look at where the money flows, so you can follow the money to see which legislators are taking money from those industry lobbies that don't want any meaningful reform. And then finally, the third thing you can do is look at how we're scoring our legislators, because we want to hold them accountable. So if legislators are advancing good immigration reform, they're going to get A's. If they're blocking it or obfuscating it, they're going to get F's. And you can start to see we've got scores coming in now as legislation is being introduced. Everybody's scorecard is going to change in almost close to real time as the legislation moves through the session. This is all about transparency, nothing more. The Idaho public deserves to see what's actually happening in the legislature on this existential issue for Idaho.
Excellent. All right, folks, another scorecard. Here we go. Michael, thanks again, brother. We'll have you back soon, man. Take care.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Oh man, that was a lot of stuff here, folks, but we're going to keep watching on this. We just have to. I mean, you've seen what's going around across the country. You see the arguments that these folks are making. And we thank folks like Michael for taking on the issue. Sometimes it's hard when you've got a lot of issues on your wall and you don't know which one to focus on, that when someone picks up one issue and runs with it, boy, you can have a huge effect on it. All right, folks, it's the top of the hour. Let's take a break. We'll get you caught up on what was going on in the House and Senate today. And I know that I don't know if the debate is still going, but we'll check in. We'll be right back.
And that's exactly what happened. You want to pull the tape? You can pull the tape, because we now got video.
Idaho is the dirt under your fingernails after an honest day's work. Idaho is the hug around your neck when your daughter spells her first word. Idaho is the written word of the law, steadfast and impartial, guarding liberty for all. Idaho is the family rifle passed down, a legacy of protection and the right to stand firm. Idaho is the echo of your own voice, unshaken and free, standing tall among the world's silenced. Idaho is the home that's built to weather storms, not empty wallets. Idaho is the quiet trust between a patient and healer, unbroken and sacred. Idaho is the hymn carried by the Spirit, gathering neighbors together in faith and purpose. Idaho is the laughter around a campfire, a family's bond growing stronger with every word. Idaho is the pioneer's will, firm and clear. We govern ourselves, free and unbound. Idaho is what America was. Let's keep it that way. Ask your legislator to sign the Citizens Alliance of Idaho pledge to preserve our shared values. We ride together.
All right, folks, we've got debate happening on the House floor. House Bill 607, Protecting Privacy and Safety in Public Buildings Act. This actually makes sure that public buildings with facilities set aside for men and women are kept to men and women. And Representative Ben Furryman is up here debating the bill. Let's dip in for a little bit and listen to this debate.
John 14. Mr. Speaker, no. And I think the key here is there is reasonable steps standard used in all premise liability doctrine. And that's what I got from the lawyers. It's like ice. Could you remove every scrap of ice? Well, not quite. You'll put a sign up. They have certain requirements. If they put there's a wet spot there, there's someone spills some water, they put a sign up. They're making reasonable accommodation, reasonable care. But do they clean it up in time? Do they everything? We're taking this to a level that's unnecessary. Reasonable care. And it's not going to mean all these things they're talking about. It's not. Just we're not going to have to replace the restrooms. That is not reasonable. That is burdensome. That is not required. So if we stay inside what this is standard of liability that you have to provide some modicum of security and safety for people in your spaces. And you need to protect the safety of that young girl in this case. How do you do that? Ignore it? Are we going to ignore it? Well, it's a real simple thing. At least have a policy in place. Reasonable duty of care. And that's in any liability case. We don't make everything perfect. And the whole thing about prohibit, I'll reiterate that. We're prohibited from doing lots of things. And we don't have people watching me outside so I'm not beating somebody up on the hallway because it's prohibited. You know what? We're going down all these lanes that don't make a lot of, it's not necessary. It's just we're trying to focus to keep that individual, that person that is the most vulnerable is safe. And that's all we're trying to do. There's no rate risk to any of this. And if someone goes, I'll reiterate this too. If they go in there and you don't have to check if they say you're not supposed to go in there anyway, that's not a problem for you as a business. That is not your problem. That is not a problem until that person in the restroom is scared or freaks out or whatever, comes out, hey, this person did this to me. Well, that becomes something even different because, again, that goes to the individual responsibility, not the company's responsibility. The individual is responsible for what happens in that restroom. So the company is not. We're just trying to remember what is the best thing about this. Dudes going into the shower with your 17-year-old girl, not okay. That's the bottom line on this. That's what it is. We don't need men going in and joining women. As a father, that is unacceptable. We need to provide this, and all this is very reasonable. And by the way, there's 10 states have done this law already. I was reported 10 states, so we'd be number 11. So we need to get this reasonable care locked down. I think it's by all liability standards. I think we're set.
The good gentleman
Gentleman from 30.
Will the good gentleman yield to a follow-up question?
Gentleman yield to follow-up question.
Yes.
I applaud the good gentleman, and I couldn't agree more with your premise and your intent. But intent and reality are two different things. So I apologize, but I don't think you answered my question. If a business locked their bathroom doors, requiring me and all of their customers to get a key in order to use them, would that be considered reasonable care?
Gentleman 14.
That would be extraordinary care, actually. Extraordinary care. That would be, and they do that in all the restrooms now when you go to the gas station. So I guess you're right on that one.
Gentleman 30. Further debate on the motion. Gentleman 7.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, to debate.
Gentleman has the floor.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to point you all to the exemptions of this bill, which there are many. I think we are getting a little into the weeds of what this bill will actually do and what it won't actually do. It's a pretty basic bill. Most buildings already in existence, most businesses in existence already fall into the rules of this bill. You have men's rooms, you have women's rooms, you have single sex, you have dual sex, you have family, you have single use, you have all these things. Most of them are covered by the exemptions. Law enforcement's exempted. If there's an emergency, if there's only one bathroom available, then that falls into the exemption that you can go into the other bathroom as long as you make sure there's not somebody of the other sex in the bathroom. This doesn't create new standards for building bathrooms. It doesn't require you to expand bathrooms. Most small businesses have a single-use toilet anyways, and they're labeled for both sexes. That's covered under the exemption of this bill. This is a simple bill that protects women, protects men, protects everybody in their privacy. It's not just about being in the shower. Some people are not comfortable being undressed in front of anybody, let alone somebody of the opposite sex. If you're in the gym and you're done working out and you're sitting there trying to clean up in front of the window or the mirror, and here comes some woman into the bathroom, am I going to be comfortable with that? No. That's not appropriate. This bill is simple, and you guys are making it into something it doesn't need to be. Read the exemptions, read the language. Reasonable is reasonable. It's already been given to us. We have the definition under ADA law. This is not that big of a deal. This is a simple green light. Let's get it done.
Gentleman from 13.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Permission to debate the bill.
Gentleman has the floor.
I'd also ask unanimous consent to refer to other legislation.
Unanimous consent has been requested. Is there objection? Hearing none, gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the body, we passed Senate Bill 1100 a couple of years ago that dealt with this particular issue in regards to K-12. And we were told some of the same things during that debate, that there's going to be a litany of lawsuits and this is not going to work. To date, there's been one lawsuit. It is in the Boise School District. And it was exactly what the individual that brought the legislation forward was concerned about. And so they're going to litigate that in the courts. So this is not going to lead to a bunch of frivolous lawsuits. With respect to the good lady from 17 and the concern about small business, if you look at, I believe it's page 5, line 26, there are exemptions, provides single occupancy restrooms and changing facilities. That's the majority of small businesses this does not apply to. So the idea that this applies to all these small businesses, that's not the case. If you only have one restroom in your place of business, it doesn't apply to you. So I think that you need to look at the exemptions that are built in, or single occupancy changing facilities does not apply. There was also someone who said, in debate today, I heard, this hasn't happened in Idaho. Well, unfortunately it has. In northern Idaho, there was a female lifeguard that got done with her shift and went into the locker room to change, and there is a biological male. Totally undressed, standing there. It's very uncomfortable. And so she reported this incident. So very simple. We've been here before with Senate Bill 1100. It's worked out well. This is simply about keeping biological males out of biological women's restrooms and locker rooms. And so I'd ask for your green light.
For the debate on the motion, good lady from 33.
Yep. Mr. Speaker, to debate the bill. In favor.
Good lady has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Friends, I'll be quick. I thought the good gentleman from 13 was going to also include the Women's Privacy Bill 264 that I brought last year. If you recall, it also did almost the exact same things and extended that to the universities. And that would be the universities, including when you go to a game at Boise State and you've got the bathrooms, just like the high schools. If you go to a game and you have the stadiums, a lot of, like even in Idaho Falls, we have a stadium. In 2023, when that bill was passed, as you know, the Ninth Circuit upheld that with all the exact same arguments that you've mentioned. And then last year with this bill, it went to the federal district court. Guess what? It's upheld. Let me remind this body also, we passed last year 264 on a 61-9 vote. This is a good bill.
For debate on the motion. Hearing none, with the gentleman 10 care to close debate. 14, excuse me. Gentleman 14, clear to close the debate.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, those are some great points. I want to bring up a point about the last bills we have and past litigation. I did Senate Bill 1100, and there's been one case. Everyone was, oh, we're going to have all these cases. It's going to be terrible. One, Boise High, a young boy was masturbating in the women's bathroom there. That was the case, and that's outstanding right now. So it's not this random, all this is going to go sideways, because it will not. The reasonable steps standard used for all previous liability, that's the key. It's really important, because we're talking about this liability. What about the ice? I always use the ice analogy. Well, they remove as much ice as they can, but they don't remove it all. So if they don't remove it all, are they potentially liable? Potentially. They took reasonable steps. You have to remove it all, or you're going to be liable. Well, that doesn't happen. Water, they put the signs up. That is the reasonable step of liability. That is really clear. And this is the same thing, reasonable care. And it's not going to be this crazy people coming after you with liability. It's the standard of proof is so high, that's going to be extremely difficult for you to prove. And that's unfortunate in one case, but we can close that with the criminal side. So understand, if we can stop just those individuals that we don't want to go in there, this is a success. 10 states have done this. Just remember, as a father, as a brother, and thinking of what you're trying to do, is some biological man is going in to the restroom or the shower with my daughter. That's all you need to say. What do we need to stop that? All this other noise, that's the focus. That can't happen. And if we're going to state this, well, we'll tolerate that because we're just going to do that because that's okay once in a while. No, it's not okay ever. So I think that's the line. I think this is a good bill to vote green.
Page closed. Question is House Bill 607 passed the House.
Okay, let's bring in Brian Allman here. We're going to watch the vote here on House Bill 607 as they go to the board, and it lights up green. Good afternoon now there, Brian, as we watch this board light up. I have a feeling it's going to hit the 60 mark. Might not.
Well, 59 would be a
Has every member
party
voted?
line vote. So 56 is pretty close. We got Manwaring,
Every member wishes to change
Nelson,
their vote.
Garner,
Watch
Cheatham are Republicans voting against it.
Scott votes aye. Matthias votes nay. Thompson votes aye. Galaviz votes
61 would be a party line.
56
party line
ayes,
vote, that is.
13 nay, 1 absent, and excused. Majority having voted in favor of House Bill 607.
Yeah, there it is. All right. Well, just like let's bring the vote. We'll keep an eye on the House here. They might just adjourn rather quickly, and we'll see how it goes. But what are your thoughts on this bill? I mean, it's a great bill. I mean, it's just clamping down on all of this nonsense, right?
You're right that it's nonsense. There's way too much nonsense these days. It's pretty ridiculous that this is something that has to be debated in the Idaho legislature in the year of our Lord 2026. But that's the world we find ourselves in, where we have a very small number of it goes. I guess it goes both ways, but it's really the men who want to dress up as women and then go use the women's rooms because there's this very specific, I don't know if you call it disorder or fetish, where some men they derive pleasure from pretending to be women and then having other people validate that and doing it in public. So this isn't about somebody who can, if you look at them, you can't tell what gender they are or that they're not actually the gender they're pretending to be, because somebody who does that probably wouldn't even be noticed. If somebody with a beard comes into the men's room, I'm probably not going to look twice and think, oh, that's a woman pretending to be a man. But if somebody who's clearly male is going into a women's locker room or a women's bathroom because they want to impose that on other people, to impose that on real women, then that is a problem, and that should be addressed. And we've been trying to address it for years. As Representative Hill said, it was 2 or 3 years ago that he carried the first bathroom bill that said that in public schools you can't allow the boys to use the girls' room. And now we're having to look at the rest of society.
Yeah, it really boggles the mind that we do have to waste time on this, but it kind of just shows that there's still work to be done, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And at least here in Idaho we've got 50. This one was a 56, which is pretty good. We got a 56er on the board for something
solid.
like this.
Four or five Republicans, are confused about the issue. Hopefully they'll come to their senses at some point. Now, something Representative Hill brought up several times there. He was talking about the duty of care. While we were watching, I was doing a quick overview of that concept. It's very old. It goes back to English common law. It's this idea that, as he was explaining, that businesses or even individuals have a duty to make sure that people are not injured or impacted by things under their control. Like he said, clearing out water or ice, making sure that the right people use the right restroom seems to fall under that doctrine there.
I was just going to say, and this gives more protections for the business. If the business says, we're not going to allow men to use the women's restroom because we don't want to be held liable in case something should happen. You have to respect that. It's just, sometimes businesses don't even allow you to use the restroom because their insurance doesn't cover the public. It only covers the employees who use the restroom. And so you see businesses get in trouble all the time when someone walks in and says like, can I use your restroom? And they say no. And they go, but I really, 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 really have to go. And they go, I'm sorry, you can't. And it sounds so inhumane. Oftentimes, usually businesses will say, okay, well, this one time because of an emergency, because they don't want to clean up the mess in the middle of the sales floor. But that being said, it is about liability. And it is about making sure that businesses are protected. And it's so funny because so many times these folks stand up and say that they're actually diminishing the rights of the business to conduct their how they want. to do business on how they want. And most businesses don't want to be held liable for mentally ill men going into the girls' restroom to do whatever it is they feel like they need to do, even if it's just to be there, and make women feel uncomfortable. This is a good bill. So,
yeah, I'm glad it passed, and we'll see what happens in the Senate. If it passed by that much, I don't see it getting stopped on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, these bills have been flying through. They've been challenged in court, as they've been said, and it's been working its way. So yeah, I think that's good. Brian, I want to get your input a little bit. You saw earlier in the broadcast, the first half hour, we talked to Michael Angioletto about the immigration issue. We are hopefully also expecting to have Representative Brent Crane join us. I know the House just adjourned, so if he is able to make it before we get off the air, we'll go to him. But real quick on your perspective on this immigration, illegal workforce, foreign-born workforce press conference that happened on Friday at the end of the day with some of the lobbyists.
Well, I think it shows that they're on the defensive for the first time in a long time. It seems like in years past, the big ag, dairy farms and all the other industries have been comfortable thinking that they have control of the legislature. They're not going to let anything get through. But I think that confidence has diminished, and that's why they did that. One note, I don't know. I didn't see the whole first half, but they didn't do it in a time when legislators could come talk to them. They did it when both House and Senate were still on the floor. So it was really kind of talking to the media more than it was talking to the legislature. They're trying to shape a narrative here.
Wait, hold on. Is that what happened? Wait, I thought they had this towards the end of the day. They had this in the middle of the House and Senate session.
I'm told that they were, at least for part of it, that the House and Senate were still in,
because they even made reference. He even made reference at the top. I don't see any legislators in the room, but I do see the press.
Well, that would be why.
Wow. Okay. Sorry to cut you off, but yeah, finish your thought there.
Yeah, it's I think they're worried, and I don't necessarily think they should be worried, because I don't think E-Verify is a bad thing even for their industries. I've argued before, and remember, I carried a resolution to the Idaho GOP regarding E-Verify. I think it actually gives businesses, we were talking about liability there. I think it gives them more of a leg to stand on, because if somebody, one of these illegal aliens who's not supposed to be here presents stolen documentation, fraudulent documentation, and says, here, take it. And if the government website, the E-Verify website, says, yeah, they're good, and it later turns out that they're not good, then the liability would fall on the government, not on the business for hiring an illegal alien, which I think is what we want. We want to, give them the confidence to hire people without having, to worry that 70% of their employees might fail an I-9 audit. Well, let's do that audit. Let's, as they bring on new employees, let's do that check. But for some reason, they're wedded to this idea that, you're not allowed to do anything. We have to not only bring in more, visa holders, we need to expand that program. We need to, make sure you're not taking too close a look at who we're hiring. It's a frustrating position, and I'm not an expert in this field, but I think that runs counter to the actual benefits to that industry. I think they're working against themselves here.
Sure. All right, Brian, where can people follow you and keep tabs?
Oh, well, gemstatechronicle.com as always. And at Brian Ullman on X. I was doing some live tweeting of this morning's hearings, which were pretty mundane, but some interesting things might come out of it.
All right, very good. Well, we'll check back in with you next time. Thanks, Brian.
All right.
Okay, and I do believe we have Representative Brent Crane. He seems to be strolling through the hallways here. Hello, Representative Crane. How are you? Well, maybe
hey, Matt, I can't hear you. I'm assuming you can hear me.
I can hear you. Yeah, I can. Are you headed to your office? Do you want to wait till you get there?
Can't get this to work. Me log back in.
Okay. Well, let's take him off screen and we'll have him come back. All right. We want to make sure he's taken care of. Yeah. Let's do a short break here. We'll see if we can get him on the line, and we'll be right back.
Coming from within the system, which the process in the system is broken.
All Idaho lawmakers swear an oath to support the Idaho and U.S. constitutions. But how's that working out for you? Because not all Idaho lawmakers share the same values. That's where the Citizens Alliance of Idaho pledge comes in. 10 statements inspired by those 2 founding documents that are designed to preserve our shared values. Values such as education freedom, safeguarding free speech, defending our protected right to self-defense, and being responsible stewards of taxpayer dollars. When a lawmaker signs the pledge, they are performing an act of political courage, accepting the challenge to be a champion for our values, and serving with political integrity. To find out if your lawmaker signed the pledge, visit idahopledge.com. Paid for by Citizens Alliance of Idaho. We ride together. All right, we'll give it another shot here. Representative Crane, I believe, is settled in. Hey, Representative, can you hear us now?
Hey, Matt, I could hear your ad, but I can't hear you.
Oh, well, that's interesting. You guys, what do you think? What do you think technically wise there? Yeah, usually if you hear one, you should be able to hear the other, but that happens. Do you have maybe headphones or something you can put in? Maybe headphones at all?
I don't have any headphones with me to plug in.
Okay. Well, let's see here.
Let me try it on my laptop and see if I can do it that way.
Okay, that's good. You know, it's we can take him off screen for a second. One of the big, not to go into details technical wise, but everybody's phone and everybody's system is a little bit different. And sometimes your settings just go wonky. It happens here. It happens live. But we'll see if we can get it. We'll see if we can get it good. The good news is that we've got a lot of folks watching us across all of our social media here and sharing our content. It's been really fantastic to see that. And let's go back to Brent here and see if we can get him on here. Brent Crane, sir,
Hey.
can you hear us now?
I can hear you loud and clear, Matt.
Hey, we're on Verizon this time.
Oh, man, technology. Got to love it, got to hate it.
I know. I hear you, brother. I hear you. Well, thank you so much for joining us. You are chairman of what we always like to refer to here as everybody's favorite committee because it always provides the best fireworks. You run it as efficient as possible. I hear your remarks and your phrases used in other committees from folks that have come to visit you. So you really set the standard for how to run a committee, and it's really great to have you on the program today. And I wanted to kind of dive in a little bit on how you run your committee, what you like to see in committees, and what they should be properly utilized for, not just in the process of bills being presented, but your philosophy behind the committee. But real quickly, you were just on the floor debating this bathroom bill that we will call it another bathroom bill, and it sailed through. Why are we still doing? Why are we in this day and age where we have to do this?
It's unfortunate that we have to. In fact, I leaned over to Representative Vanderwater, who's been here almost the same amount of time as I have. And I said, when I started in 2006, I never anticipated that these would be issues that we would be dealing with. But I think that it's reflective of where our culture is at today. We are not being honest with people and saying to them, hey, if you're a biological male, you're a biological male. And if you're a biological female, you're a biological female. We're saying to them, you can be whatever you want to be. And so if today you're a biological male and you feel like being a female, well, then shoot, you can do that. And that's patently false. It's a lie. And it's unfortunate that we have folks, even in the medical community, that are purporting that lie and perpetuating that lie instead of being honest with these individuals and truly getting them the help that they desperately need.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Well, again, we're glad it passed the House and it's making its way over to the Senate, where it should do like the others have as well. So, all right. So let's get to the House State Affairs Committee. Give us a little bit of background on what that means. What is this? What is state affairs? Because again, it's you kind of have the bills that make a lot of the headlines. Sure. What is the philosophy behind having a House State Affairs Committee and how you run it?
So what's behind it is they call them major committees, and that would be education, that would be health and welfare, revenue and taxation, finance and appropriations. And if it doesn't fall into one of those four categories, then it ends up in the State Affairs Committee. And so those are typically the hot topic issues: constitutional issues, gun rights, gay rights, abortion rights, voting rights. So anything dealing with those type of issues is what we see before House State Affairs. And what I observed in sitting on that committee for a number of years is I had a chairman in the past who almost liked to make a sideshow and a circus out of it, and really relished in trying to make it a sideshow, in my opinion, and a circus. And so when I took over, my desire was to create fairness and predictability and efficiency inside the committee process. And so that's exactly what we have done. Is everybody will tell me, they'll say, Crane, we don't always agree with you, but we always know that we're going to get a fair shake in your committee. And they're treated with dignity and treated with respect. And those are important factors that you have to have as a committee chairman in order to make sure that it runs well. And then I also tell them, hey, just give us the facts, ma'am. These are emotional issues, and you try to keep the emotions out of it. And so if you're able to do that, then you can move effectively on these tough issues. And so as a result, we don't have a sideshow or a circus. We deal with very, very sensitive issues, tough issues, but it's done in a thoughtful and it's done in a fair manner. And so people respect that.
Yeah, and it's very evident. I mean, you'll have folks who come in who are very, maybe it's their first time testifying, maybe they just don't like talking in front of people, and they're on the opposite side of the opinion that you may have, or maybe the majority of the committee has, and you help them, you've walked them through that process. You're like, hey, just take a breathe, take a moment, you'll get through it. Nice job, well done, glad you're here. And I think that's really important to have in a civil society, to have these civil discussions in that body that you're in.
You have to. And I mean, you look at what Charlie Kirk was trying to do. It was it was the ability to talk about tough issues and have those conversations, but have them in a respectful manner. In fact, I just had this week the guy that challenged Charlie Kirk when he was here at the Boise State campus, challenged him to a fight. And Eric is a regular in my committee, but I always treat Eric with respect. And we need to have those tough conversations. Culture demands that we have those tough conversations, but we've got to do them in the appropriate way.
Yeah, well done. When you encounter some more of the colorful colleagues, folks who definitely have a voice, maybe outside, like on social media, or that they have they have the ability to just sort of spout off and really go at it, and they come into your committee or they sit on your committee. Do you have? I'm just behind the scenes. Do you have discussions with them beforehand, or do they kind of understand and have the ability to say, hey, at least in this committee, I'm going to try to be as objective and as fair as possible?
Well, attitude reflects leadership, and so individuals know that this is the type of committee that Crane will lead, and he will call anybody out. It doesn't matter if you're executive branch, it doesn't matter if you're legislative branch, it doesn't matter if you're a lobbyist, citizen, whatever. You're going to do it correctly, and you're going to do it in a respectful manner. And so, if you're there to create a sideshow, and you're there all about getting likes and clicks, and you're saying things that are inflammatory, Crane will call you out. And once you establish that, then that becomes the standard, and everybody operates inside that standard.
Yeah. Now that the committee, it seems like in the last few years, especially since COVID, has dealt with so many things dealing with, like the trans issues and and everything that stems from that. Education committee deals with a lot of the more education stuff. But when it comes to just these social, the social conservative issues that the conservatives seem to be winning on as of late, with the tide turning in terms of wokeism and all of these terms. I mean, those are the things that really are permeating your committee. I mean, and we talked about it earlier, you couldn't have imagined that we'd be talking about some of these things in these committees, but where do you see this ending? Where do you see that? I mean, is there an end to this kind of madness, that is popping up in culture? What's your remedy for this? Because government can't solve it all, right?
No, government can't solve it all, but I do think that there is end to the madness, and somebody has to step forward and invite that conversation. And so when you have, let's just use the transgender issue, for example. So when you have the medical community and the psychologists and counselors saying, oh, you can be whatever you want to be. Oh, you want to be an animal today? Well, you can be an animal today. And when you have that narrative being purported throughout society and no one is resisting that, you've got problems. Well, now you've got the legislature resisting that and inviting the conversation and saying, no, that is not normal. And as a result, you are seeing the tide shift and turn back the other way. You don't turn a battleship around overnight. And so they were headed in a direction. There was a very clear agenda to push that particular issue onto the American people. And now you're seeing the tide turning, and where the American people, are saying, hey, guys should not be competing in women's sports. Does that mean that there are states where it's not still happening? Sure. There are some states that are trying to push the boundary, but by and large, society, the overall attitude and tenor towards that issue has changed. The transgender issue, should a biological male be allowed into a biological female's restroom or locker room? The tide is turning, and that is changing. So I have seen on this committee that they're using policy as a way to help change the narrative that's happening in society and change hearts and minds in society.
Yeah, very good. Well, Representative Crane, thank you so much for joining us. How can people follow your work or keep tabs on anything that you're personally involved in or working on?
So I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. Either one of those are pretty good ways to follow what's happening and what's going on with me with regards to Capitol. I'm not one of those. I call them, there's three different types of lawmakers. There's the workhorse, and there's the show pony, and there's the chess player. I tend to fall more into the chess player type lawmaker. So I don't have a lot of show pony stuff out there on social media. Probably need to do a little bit better on that. But if you want to see what I'm doing, you can follow me on Instagram or on Facebook.
Fantastic. All right. Well, have a great rest of the week. We'll check in with you again.
Thanks. Sounds good, Matt. See ya.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
All right, folks. That's what we call bonus time here on the program. You got some extra time at the end here. Very nice. Let's make sure you guys are caught up on what's happening this week, because I'm going to be doing some traveling, heading down to the Capitol myself, and that will be where we're headed. So let me bring you guys in with a little tunes here. I'm going to be at the Capitol on Thursday, February 19 at 12 p.m., I believe, in the Lincoln Auditorium. If any of these details change, please watch for me on Facebook and X to see if any of these details change. But we'll be there talking about Doors Win Wars. That's door knocking, folks. So we'll be there for that. And what else you got, guys? Let's throw up the phone number 208-402-4915 to leave us a voicemail. We'll play it on the air proudly for you to get your word out. IdahoSignal.live to listen to the program audio only, folks. Audio only. If you're out on the road and you want to keep your data low, you can tune in and hear us that way. IdahoSignal.live. We also thank the American Smoke Company for their smoked salts. Pacific Ocean sea salt smoked in fine woods for hours and hours to deliver you a unique smoky flavor to your salt that you can use on your meat, veggies, or your morning eggs. AmericanSmokeCo.com. And happy birthday, Washington's birthday. Today is, they call it President's Day, but it's actually still technically the day off for Washington's birthday. So happy birthday, George Washington. Technically, it's the 22nd, but we celebrate it today. And can you imagine, what would he think about the fact that we are debating whether or not men should go into the women's restroom? Bizarre, very bizarre. But we're trying, George. We're trying to get back. We're trying to get back, brother. All right, folks, we'll see you tomorrow. Enjoy your Monday.
American true. Church bells ring through the valley air. Rodeo lights, what a life we share. And still perpetuate, forever we'll sing. God, land, and family. Let freedom ring. So raise that flag, let freedom fly. Echo liberty from plains to mountains high. America's heart beats red, white, and blue. 250 years of me and you, yeah. Lift it up loud. Idaho proud, American true. Idaho proud. Red, white, blue. Red, white, blue.
a stake in the ground that says we have a sovereign right to protect what's ours.